the Beyond Sleep Training podcast, a podcast dedicated to sharing real tales of how people have managed sleep in their family outside of sleep training culture. Because sleep looks different with a baby in the house. And because every family is different, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to take. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is being recorded, the Kalkadoon people. I pay my respects to the elders of this nation and the many other nations our guests reside in from the past, present and emerging. We honour Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the unique cultural and spiritual relationships to the land, water and seas, as well as their rich contributions to society, including the birthing and nurturing of children. Welcome back to the Beyond Sleep Training podcast. I'm your host, Carly Grubb, and with me again this week is my neighbour, Terese Collings, who's come along for a second episode with us so we can hear a bit more about her sleep journey with her second baby, and also discussing a bit about what it's like having teenagers in the house, because we've talked with people who've got preschoolers and school-aged kids, but we haven't had a guest on yet who's really had a bit of a chat about how sleep looks when you've got teenage kids. So in case that's of interest for people looking way down the track for most of our listeners. So welcome back to the show, Terese.
Thank you.
And where we left off, we were just talking about how you really had a very relaxed and realistic view of going into sleep with your second babe.
Yeah.
You weren't thinking it was going to be peachy, but you were also not stressed about what was ahead of you.
Yeah.
How did it actually turn out when she arrived?
Yeah, so she was a much calmer baby, except we adjusted how we were. So our first babe went straight to cot. We didn't do bassinet, didn't do any of that. Our second babe, we decided, no, like we're going to have a bassinet. And I was like, I feel like that might help with feeding. It might help with everything. So I didn't really base how we approached it on any specific like theory or what people had said. It was just more like, I'm feeling like I want this. And she was a very worrying sleeper because she'd always snuggle into the side of the bassinet. So I was forever moving her.
Yeah.
So like, and
these little movers and groovers, they give you stress levels when they're newbies.
Still is. She headbutts the wall overnight time now. So it's like she's forever moving.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
she'll like spin herself 180 and go like bury herself under a blanket. Like she's
actually, Sylvie was like that because she learnt to roll herself so early, but she could only roll one way.
Yeah.
The relief I felt when she could flip herself back over, I was like, because you just wake up, and she was so tiny.
Yeah.
But and she would do the flip so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're right. She's definitely a mover groover. And we started using like sleep suits and stuff. Didn't do any of that with our first one. Yeah, with the second one we decided we'd invest in those Love to Dream swaddles and stuff, because it wasn't until our first one was a bit older that, because none of my friends had babies. Like I'd not been around babies for like years.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, like what's all this new stuff? And like there's so much out there now.
Yeah, too much.
So much. And so I went, oh, like, okay, like you can actually get these little suits for sleep, and like maybe that would stop the effect of startling. Like, and so I was like, I'm going to try it, like, because I don't want to do belly sleeping.
Yeah.
And then she started rolling in the bassinet, and I went, now your arms are stuck in this suit and you're rolling. I was like,
this is a nightmare. That was my girl too. I had that real problem. I had to take her out of those suits so quick because she was so determined to roll.
Yeah, I moved her to one where the arms were free because I was like, at least then you can use your arms.
And she did. Was yours like a little, mine was like a little turtle, like she from really new. She could push up.
Yeah.
Because she was crawling at 4 months, but she was just so strong in her.
Yeah. So I would like watch her so much of a nighttime, and I was like, God, I'm glad you're right next to the bed because I can lay here and like watch you without getting too exhausted because like I'm resting.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, because it's some of it, like, I don't know, like you get like an anxiety about it, but it's almost like a warranted anxiety because you know that it is a risk, but at the same time, what are you going to do? So keeping her close, being able to monitor her, that was a great safety mechanism, because you can imagine
it was
if she was away from you.
If she was in a whole nother room, I don't think I'd sleep.
No.
I'd forever be like checking and Like, I feel like my anxiety around that side of stuff was higher with the second one than what it was with our first. Well,
do you think it was awareness of?
I think it was just more like with our first, I wasn't so, like, I just wasn't worried about it because I was like, oh, well, like babies are like, you know, they're mini primates. They know what to do. Like, we don't have to worry too much.
Meanwhile,
Second one, I was like, okay, let's, you know,
try a few things and see what you can do.
Let's rejig this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, she predominantly slept for like 6 odd hours from the time she was put down. Like, her second night at home, so much calmer.
Wow.
So much calmer. There was, I think it was like the fourth night where she was a little bit unsettled, and then I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try this white noise thing that everyone talks about, because I was like, I hate doing this stuff. Because then like the people's comments of don't get them used to that, they're going to always, I started going, oh no, like if I do it now, like am I
going to be doing it forever?
So I really questioned it. And then, yeah, I was like, oh, I don't have a white noise machine because I wasn't doing this. Like, this is not what I was doing. So I literally YouTube, like put my phone screen down really low, like so it wasn't bright and everything. And that was the one thing where she would then settle for 4 odd hours. And then she woke again, and I kind of like, I had this sort of like, why are you sleeping? How you know? And I went, oh, it's just one night, Terese. Like, seriously, get over it. And I was like, oh, pick you up.
Every night's different. Yeah.
But I was like, oh, like in that moment, instead of being like, no, and like getting really stressed and like I'm doing something wrong or something's not right, or like, you know, I just went, oh, okay, like you just want cuddles, like something's going on.
Yeah, you stop questioning.
Like you just
so
let
hard.
go.
There's a lot of energy goes into that questioning and problem solving, whereas if you just go, yeah, she's awake. Let's go have a cuddle and
just
get on with it.
We'll be right.
And so how is feeding going through that time then for you?
Really good. Like the first, she was about 3 months old when we hit our first speed bump. And it was more, she just wanted, like she wanted more and more and more and more and more. And she was really unsettled for a couple of days. And I went, what is going on? And because at first I was like, oh, okay, like you're cluster feeding, like you've hit like I was like, that's fine, like I can work with this. And then I went through the first night and I was like, okay, like not unusual, like a day and night, like that's fine. And then the next day, and I was like, I feel like I've got nothing left for you. Like I don't know if you're doing it to try and boost supply, but my supply is not boosting, like I'm not responding.
Yeah, you could feel the difference.
I was like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
So we ended up buying formula as a backup.
Yeah.
And then, like my supply had dipped a bit, but what she was trying to do to boost it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you need sleep. I need to be able to boost my supply. Like, how are we going to do this? So we patchwork fed for, I think it was like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So I think she ended up having maybe like 1 full formula bottle across that time. It was something very minor because I was like, is that all she had? Like, yeah, so in my head, I was like,
you would think she's starving.
So much. And then I got onto a recipe for lactation cookies and all that type of stuff. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to try these things that I didn't really have that opportunity to try with Cora. So I was like, no, I'm going to try it this time. Like I'm going to, you know, instead of just going, oh, well, that's that. Like, you know, I was like,
it was important to you to try these things. Yeah.
And then after she'd feed from me and if she went down for sleep, like if she was still looking for more, Ross would give her the bottle while I then pumped, because I'm like, I'm just going to see if I can actually get any more after she's pulled away. And then Cora would come and sit with me and she'd hold the pump and she'd be like, helping.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, okay, you can do helping. And like she'd press the buttons on the pump and she'd do all that. And that was her little thing. And like at first I was kind of like, no, don't touch. And I was like, no, actually, like, yeah, you can help like through this way. And then Russ was like, oh, like, we haven't been involving her as much as what we could. I was like, no, we haven't. I was like, okay, here we go.
She was interested.
Yeah.
So
and good. So then from there, she became the real, like, you know, you need to, baby's crying, Mom. Like, you know, there's literally a photo of her pointing at MRI on the lounge with MRI crying. And she's like frowning at me like,
come on, Mum.
What is this?
Baby needs help.
Hello. And I was like, oh, stop.
So cute.
So, like, yeah, then we really involved her. And then she became like, she would sit next to me on the lounge and she would like hold there while I was feeding. And she's like, are you feeding baby? I'm like, I'm feeding baby. And she's like, I feed my baby. And then like she'd try and feed her baby and things like that. And I was like, oh, like.
It's really beautiful, isn't it, watching our bigger ones?
It's more relaxing than what it ever has been.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, my supply came back and managed to feed her through till when she went to daycare, because my thing was like, I was like, I can't express. Like, I could get next to nothing when I did pump. So I was like, I'm not going to try and express for daycare, because I was going back to work full time. I was like, I get one break in the day. Like, it's not enough to feed her.
Yeah.
So I just went, oh, well, we'll transition out a bottle. And that way then, like, come then, she was 12 months. So we just
Wow, you did so well.
Yeah, 10 weeks to 12 months.
Oh, Terese.
Bit of a difference.
That's epic.
So then, we transitioned her slowly over to the watered down cow's milk, because everyone's like, oh, don't just give it to them straight, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, should we look into, like, an alternate milk? And Ross was like,
if you're going to feed, it's what's in your family diet, isn't it? Because I think that's, people question that, and mostly it's what's going to be in your family diet.
I've been vegan before, so we've had soy milk, we've had like, all these different milks. So we were like, oh, do we just do cow's milk? Like, are we that family that buys like half a trolley of milk now? Like, is that what we're doing? So we kind of went, oh, okay. And like Cora was having her milk bottles, and so then I kind of went, oh, like, maybe they'll just watch each other and
work it out.
Because
you can do sippy cups and things too from when they're 12 months, can't you? You don't need to even necessarily go
bottle. No. Yeah. So now they have sippy cups because they like to have a bottle of a night time.
How's the teeth? You have to do that. Do they let you brush them afterwards?
Yes. Yeah. So, most of the time, like, so they'll brush their teeth of a morning, of a night, like after dinner. So they go for their bath and brush their teeth, and then pending how they're going, if they fall asleep while they're having the bottle, I'm like, oh,
it's a tough one then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Messing with a sleeping baby. Who wants to do that?
Yes, exactly. But yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah, and then the dummies, because anyway,
dummies are a challenge. I only had one guy who took a dummy, and it was he ended up giving it up easy enough when he decided it. But he decided it was time, like he was, but still then him trying to figure out how to calm down to sleep.
Yeah.
Whew, it's hard work for them.
Yeah.
So it's like another.
It was, like we had Cora putting dummies out for the dummy fairy, and then the dummy fairy would leave a book at the front door. So we would normally do it like when we were going out.
Yeah. So
like one of us would put the kids in the car, and then the other one would do the slopperoo and chuck the dummies. And that was working. And then she realised Mariah still had a dummy.
Oh, it's tricky being when you got like, the little one. Hey.
You don't just get a dummy, and we'll keep taking her dummy.
Oh, and you're like, she's tiny.
Like, And so that came into the challenge, and like both of them go all day at daycare without a dummy. They don't even look for it, don't ask for it, don't anything. Come home, the second they get in the car, where's my dummy? And I'm like, we don't need a dummy, we're in the car.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need a dummy. We're good.
It's such a comfort pattern though, isn't it, for them?
Yeah. And like Ross gets really annoyed at the dummies because he's like, they don't need dummies. I'm like, I know they don't need them.
But they help them
us,
still.
But for them, they're like, I need the dummy.
Yeah.
And so now if they're doing something, eating at the table, anything like that, we're always like, dummies up. Yeah. Like, we do something, take your dummy out, and they'll take it out. Like, they don't even suck on them anymore.
They're just there.
They just sit there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I've heard that for lots of people, and I think trying to go gradually like you guys are, it's got to be the gentlest way for them.
And then we're going to introduce another one.
Yeah, but that's it. Even it is different because you've got that slightly bigger age gap this time. It does help because they're kind of in a different realm.
Yeah.
Like I know our guys with the third babe, they were very understanding of the baby. Like they got the difference. It's not always easy when they're so close together because they're both babies. So it's a bit tricky.
We're hoping that they're a little bit more understanding of that's baby, that's for baby.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, see how that goes because it's always, like we said though, there's always something because I know so like my other two never had dummies, so we never had to do the dummy weaning stuff. But with my other two, there was still stages and things where they found sleep really hard that I probably skipped over with my first go because the dummy helped. And I just didn't have that with them. So I don't think there's like any one option for you where you're going to avoid rough times with your littles.
Cora didn't take a dummy until she was 3 months old, and that was because she started teething at 3 months. She'd like identified it as like a soother, and that was the first time that we'd given it to her and she'd kept it, because when we first identified she was colicky, we kept giving the dummy to try and soothe her, like thinking maybe you just need to suck, like we don't know what's going on for you. And she would always spit it out and just not want it. And so we were like, okay, no worries. And then my, process of elimination. And then one afternoon I gave it to her when I was undressing her for bath, and she kept it in her mouth the whole time, getting undressed, carrying to the bath, going for bath, getting out of the bath, getting dressed after bath. And she would not let it go. And I was like, okay, all right, we take a dummy now. And then it was here and there after that. And it wasn't until she was about the 10, 11-month-old mark that she started going, I want my dummy. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I should have just gotten rid of them.
When you weren't so fast with them. Yeah.
I was like, I missed it.
Yeah, it's true.
So, yeah. And now she'll still like hold it in her mouth, and then we're kind of like, you're a big girl now. Like, we don't need dummies. Like, and she'll take like 6 dummies to bed with her. She'll use one.
Yeah. But she's got her collection.
6, and she puts them next to her pillow, and we're kind of like,
oh man, I love 3-year-olds. I've got a 3. They are just hilarious. Like, I feel like it's just
she does some funny things.
Yeah, it's the best.
But yeah, like with Mariah, like she didn't take a dummy either. Like, we didn't use dummy for soothing. Like, she would feed to sleep. So I would feed her to sleep whilst patting Cora. So I would literally sit on the end of Cora's bed, patting Cora and like breastfeeding Mariah to sleep. And then, she'd fall off to sleep feeding, and then I'd pat Cora off to sleep and then go put Mariah down in the bassinet. So then we started doing it like transition for day naps in the cot to see how she'd go. Because I was like, I'm okay if like the day sleep's disrupted a bit. Yeah. Like, we can manage that. Because then she'll fall back asleep on me. Like, it's easy enough to manage in amongst Cora, like chuck her in the baby wearer, she can still get a decent sleep. Yeah. Nighttime sleep, like she was sleeping the 6-7 hours chunk at the beginning. I was like, I don't want to disrupt her decent sleep. Like, that's, her good chunk of sleep. And so we did that way, and she transitioned quite fine. Yeah. It was literally like a few days, and she was like,
you sound like you got so lucky that you were able to like get them off to sleep and put them down. Because I didn't.
Not all the time.
Okay. I was going to say,
not every time.
Because I definitely didn't have transferable babies. That's for sure.
Not every time. Sometimes it would be like, I'd be sitting in with Cora for like an hour and a half to get her off to sleep. Yeah. Because she still is. Sometimes she'll take, the hour and a half to go off to sleep. Yeah. Depending if she's had a nap or just rested at daycare, and
3-year-olds and naps.
All that type of stuff. So it's an ongoing thing, but it's just one of those things that's a little bit messy and takes a bit longer sometimes. And so that's normally when I'll chuck an AirPod in and listen to podcasts, because I'm like, what else do you do? Yeah. Patting a babe off to sleep. Like, I can still hear you. I'm here. I'm comforting. I'm still present, but also zoning. And
I'm not going to lose my crap because I've got something else I can focus on for now.
Exactly. And so then, I'd pat her off to sleep. And if it took quite a while and MRI would like go off quite quickly, then when I would go to move her, sometimes she would go like, oh, like you're putting me down. And then she'd have another feed because she hadn't had a decent feed.
She might not have been done.
Exactly. Yeah. So there were nights where like she could wake like an hour or two after being put down. Yeah. But otherwise, like most times, I'd say like 90% of the time she'd go down fine. But
amazing.
Like, she is.
You lucked out, by the way. Yeah, can I just wow. Yeah. Wow. To everybody listening along. But,
no, they are pretty good sleepers.
Yeah, and I think, but it's really good for people listening along to know, like you've fed them to sleep, you've helped your babes off to sleep the entire time, and they can sleep these big long chunks, because that's like, I think some people really get it in their head that if you do those things, they're going to wake, because you've got your dependent sleep associations that people love to go on about.
No.
It just doesn't work like that.
No.
They sleep for as long as they can sleep.
Exactly.
And
like now Cora wakes during the night and then she just walks straight in and stands at the side of bed where I am. And she'll just wait.
Like, Mom, I'm going to need you.
And then I'm like, okay, I need you to climb up because Mummy cannot lift you right now. And so then she'll climb up and then she just snuggles on in and that's it. Like she's back asleep within 10 seconds.
Sounds like my 3-year-old just needs that closeness.
Yeah.
I don't know too, like for my person, she's got a lot of time away from us at the moment too, started kindy and doing all those things. So I feel like she's gotten even more intense with her need to come in for extra cuddles at night because she's got so much time away, like Cora a reconnection.
Started liking to watch videos, so she likes to watch them on like a tablet or something. Yeah. And so then of an afternoon where she would normally come for cuddles, she's now watching videos. And so I'm like, all right, like I feel like you've just
swap
shifted
some of that out a bit.
Yeah, you've shifted where you're getting it from.
But and it's like different with third baby coming and whatnot too. Like it's kind of their needs remain, even though you are now split even more.
Yeah.
And I think that's like part of the adjustment when you welcome a new person, because I think you sometimes then expect more from your toddlers.
Oh, yeah.
But actually they're still that same little person. They look huge when you've got a newborn, huge.
And you can't like, you should be past this.
But really they're not. And I think it's like such an important one to keep pulling yourself back on, to realise that actually they're still really small and trying to work with them, because it's a big shift for them too, isn't it? And she'll know for sure that there's, new human. She's been there, done this before.
Yeah, no,
big
she
sister.
sits in the car because she's in the middle next to both, because she's the one that you can say like gentle hands and understands gentle hands.
Yeah.
Whereas the other
the car seat placements.
The amount of stuff that goes into it.
Yes.
And we put his seat in and she goes, Mum, you put his seat in, but you haven't put him in yet. And I'm like, no, because he's not born yet.
He's still tucked.
And then she's like, well, you need to get him out of your belly. And I was like, I know.
She's
that
ready to meet him.
Oh. So, yeah, she's kind of like, where is he? Like every afternoon, where's the baby, Mum? I'm like, still in Mum's belly.
Well, not for much longer, Cora. We're all excited to hear soon.
We just have to wait.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like, oh, like, this is ridiculous. It's like, I know.
I'm just thinking, because I just looked at the time, we're nearly at the end of our second episode. But before we do that, you have a teenager in your house.
We do.
How does teenage sleep look?
So he struggles with the early wakes from the younger ones.
Oh, yeah.
So, he would normally have, like, he would go to bed really, really late and then wake up.
Sleep in.
Yeah. Whereas he's gone through a bit of a shift. So when he was living with his mum, he could do that because there were no little kids in their house. So now he's had to shift all of that. And he's responded quite well to it in that he does go to bed earlier. And that he does still struggle a bit to go off to sleep, though.
Yeah.
So it's quite a different, like, he obviously doesn't need you to sit there and pat him off to sleep, but he does need those cues of like, okay, like, you need to put the phone down.
Yeah.
We need to stop this now. We need to do this, like, and try and work him through that.
Supporting his sleep hygiene.
Yeah. But it's also like, you're 14.
Yeah.
This is for you. Like, to understand and to work through. And so we try and do it in a way that's not like, oh, you always telling me to get off my phone.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes a different argument.
Yes.
And it's like, we're not saying it for that. We're saying
we're trying to help you get to sleep.
Yeah. Which he's actually quite receptive to. So that's good. But yeah, he'll generally sleep through, like, he gets himself up for school and everything come 6 o'clock.
That's awesome.
So, like,
because some teens really struggle with that get up for school time, because I know they've talked about pushing high school later, because a teen normally naturally sleeps that bit later.
Yeah. So he's started getting up, like, he kind of realised, like, the girls are up come 6, like,
that's when the game's on in this house.
Yeah, like, you can't really sleep too much past there. On a weekend, though, he does manage to. And we're like, it's the weekend.
Oh, of course. Like, he's got to be able to have rest when he wants to rest as well.
We're not worried.
Yeah.
Because he'll be like, oh, do I have to be up in the morning? We're like, no.
No.
Like, you're good. If anything, one of us will be home and the other one goes with the girls. So like, you're right. And like he'll get himself up, get himself ready for school. All the rest of it, comes home, does his thing, and like generally takes himself off to bed come 9. Because like Ross is very stern on like 9:30 latest your bedtime.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I know that you take a bit to get to sleep.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that by the time you're asleep,
it's
you're
not
getting enough sleep.
Yeah, fair call.
So
does he feel better when he's had enough? Like, does he notice the feeling of when he hasn't had enough sleep?
Yeah, he kind of goes, oh, I didn't sleep very well last night. And, you know, we kind of go, oh, like, how do you know that? Like, what happened? And he's like, oh, I woke at this time, and then I woke at this time, and then I woke at this time. And
still waking at night.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, you know, cuddle with mum and dad anymore. Does he, like, I'm curious to know though, because, you know, lots goes on in teen brains and whatnot. Does he sometimes need to like download what's worrying him before
we said
bed?
to him, like, oh, are you worried about anything? Like, did something happen at school that day? Or like, you know, what do you kind of wake up, like, are you thinking about something, or like what's kind of happening? And he'll be like, oh, I thought about like what I was meant to do in this class, or like, you know, I remembered that I didn't do this. And like, so Ross has gotten him into the habit of because with the boys, like, I very much go like, Ross is the main parent there. I was like, I'm side, but you're the main one there. And so he's like, oh, like, here's a notebook, here's a pen, that's your diary, put that next to your bed. If you wake during the night and you're thinking of stuff, write it down.
Yeah.
So he's tried to kind of like get him to a point of, it's okay that you're waking because you're worried about it, but it's in like what happens after that.
Yes.
Like, how can we manage after that?
Yeah.
And so he's kind of gone, oh, okay. And like on the weekend, stuff was worrying him. So he decided, I'm like, Dad, I'm going to write in my book. Like, I need to get stuff out. And Ross was like, okay.
Good work.
And he's like, he actually listens.
Did he just like, that's a high five moment with a teen in the house? Surely.
Riley was already like, I'm out, man. But Ross was like, actually listens. Like, oh.
Take that one as
of course he listens.
Yeah, it's so good though, because it's not being done in a threatening manner. Like, it's just like, you know, these are some tools. You don't have to use it, but you might find it helpful.
Yeah, like Ross goes, you know, do you pull up notes on your phone? He's like, I don't know how you kids, like, you know, use your phones for this side of things.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, sometimes, like, yeah, you can write notes and stuff and all that. And Ross is like, okay, like, do you do, like, journal, or, like, you don't, or, like, you know, where are you at? And Riley would be like, nobody journals, Dad.
Actually, lots of people do.
Yeah, they do.
But they're not going to tell you about it.
Exactly. And that's what we said to him. We're like, you know, it's okay if you do. Like, the whole point of a journal is for yourself, and it's a way of getting things down. You don't need to discuss it with anyone. Exactly. And like Ross just said to him, you know, if that is your way of doing it, like, if you do wake at night, he's like, it's not great to have your phone.
Lights,
but you know, hence the paper and pen, so that you're not having like this bright light. And he's like, well, I still open my phone so that I can see the paper and pen. And Ross was like, yeah, well, fair point. Like, yeah. So, but like, he's very open to that side of things. I think if you had like a teenager that wasn't, though, to manage, like,
I guess that'd be the thing, isn't it? You'd be adjusting like to
it's a little bit
the person you got again.
Exactly. But growing up, my sister would sleep all the time, whereas I was up early, going for a run home, like, you know, like, we'd go to sleep at the same time.
But bodies are so different, aren't they? Yeah, I'm a very sleepy person, which is interesting being the person I am. But I actually need way more sleep than most adults. Like, I'm above average in terms of sleep that I actually need.
Yeah.
And I've always been like that. So as a teenager, I was shocking to get places. But I wasn't doing anything wrong. Like, I was just doing what my body needed. And so I think that's the thing, once again, like, if your teen is a really long sleeper, or there is still teens who don't need much sleep as well. If they're functioning well, you're not seeing like that tiredness in them. They might actually be all right as well. So you can adjust accordingly. But all right, well, I'm just looking at our time, and we are maxed out to the max, but I'm so glad we got the teen conversation in. And we're very excited to be welcoming third baby Collings any day now. And hopefully. But thank you so much for coming on the show. And we got a unique perspective there. What a comeback for a breastfeeding journey too for second babe. Well done, you. Very different, with also just different mindset to go with, which is awesome. And appreciate the take on teen sleep. We haven't had that one before. So thank you.
Oh, good.
I really hope you enjoyed the podcast today. The information we discussed was just that, information only. It is not specific advice. If you take any action following something you've heard from our show today, it is important to make sure you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed, whether that advice be legal, financial, accounting, medical, or any other advice. Please reach out to me if you do have any questions or if there's a topic you'd really like us to be covering. And if you know somebody who'd really benefit from listening to our podcast, please be sure to pass our name along. Also, check out our free peer support group, the Beyond Sleep Training Project, and our wonderful website, www.littlesparklers.org. If you'd like even more from the show, you can join us as a patron on Patreon, and you can find a link for that in our show notes. If listening's not really your jam, we also make sure we put full episode transcripts on our Little Sparklers website for you to also enjoy, and fully captioned YouTube videos as well on our Little Sparklers channel. So thanks again for listening today. We really enjoy bringing this podcast to you.